I'm on it.
Welcome into the Bobby Carpenter Show, and excited to have everybody in here with us today, Schlags. It has been a fun week. There's been a lot of different action, a lot of stuff going on, and with that, hopefully everything is good with you. Hopefully you're in a good spot, in a good situation. A little chilly here in Columbus, Ohio today, and that's all right. Hopefully it'll turn and get a little warmer. We got a big Easter week. A lot of guys are obviously finishing up their 30 visits for Buckeyes, finishing up that. They just finished up spring ball, went to the White House yesterday, Schleg.
So
I
awesome.
know we've got a lot of nuggets in there from the White House that you're very excited about. The best Buckeye team that is around there. So pretty excited with all of that. What was your takeaway with anything of that? We can start pulling up some of the stuff there.
Pull it up, man. I just got done. This is great because like today,
Right.
my alpha females, the Fury, they got back in town super late. My flights got delayed. I got in super late. I got them all gas station ready t-shirts. We actually had a great dialogue of what to me, like I tell you guys, like gas station ready, like big traps, pumping diesel in a truck, like don't mess with that guy. Then I'm like, what does that female kind of look like in my mind? And I was like, what if you roll up on a female and she's out there, she's like vaping. She's like vaping. She got monster quads, right? And yeah, I don't know. Something about like she like hit a vape and it came out or something. I don't know. I was just like, what does that look like? I don't know. I made them all discuss it, and it was quite hilarious. And Brian Peters got the sign
every time I come out, I bring my vape out. Is that what you're saying?
I don't know. I was just kind of like, we were just thinking of like because they're not, and they just played Vegas, and they got a red card, which was like
you get a red card in volleyball.
There's a red card in volleyball. Like you get a yellow card, like you're arguing a call, red card, like they'll fine you. And then they did this thing where they showed what a red card was on the social, and they're like, you got to take this down. I'm like, that's exactly what I want. I wanted that all season. Like, this is the chip I'm talking about, spike it in their face. All game, red cards all everywhere. Let's go. Anyways, it was great. So my takeaway, first off, the White House. Awesome, man. Regardless of who's the president, guys, like go. It's awesome. It's a great experience. And when you get to hear a president talk about you and talk about Captain Jack and,
Captain Jack, probably the best.
Ohio's son.
Exploded off the line. Unlike those losers from Texas. JD, you're a loser. You dropped the trophy.
Oh my gosh.
Up here, a real winner.
I mean, you see that the trophy is like two because like they hoist it.
I don't think. Hold on, we're gonna get to all this.
Okay.
Let's do some of the positive stuff up there, Pat. If you could throw up. I wish we had the audio because it's so good. I love it. Like listening to Bill Maher, who was talking about Trump in his meeting. He's like, it was like meeting a guy. He goes, it was nothing like I expected. But he goes, it's a character up there behind the microphone. It's like you always have to understand that. But some of his praise for JJ and for Jack, and it was pretty amazing. Talking about he was a level that no one else had been at. From what I hear, no one could stop him, not even as a freshman. And like the president of the United States saying that about you is pretty cool. So that was big praise, obviously coming from Donald Trump about JJ. Maybe the best, like second team All-American as a true freshman. So pretty darn impressive and pretty darn cool.
Yeah, really cool. And the experience, I went there in 2014. You see all the guys and they're around their buddies.
I didn't go.
I mean, listen, man, you're making memories, guys. Like these are the things that you remember. And again, we remember our bowl games and our teams, Bob, and then like these moments when you win a national championship, like there's only one team that does that gets to make that memory every single year. Our guys got to be able to go do that. And they all looked fantastic. It's just a great experience. It was great. Honestly, great to see Ryan and his family there together, and then even like this Masters weekend and all the memes that come out, like when Rory like lost it on the 18th, there was a great one of that. That's somewhere in the show sheet too. Actually, it says Herb Kirkstreet, one of that. Like there's just so many things this weekend that was awesome. But for the Buckeyes, it culminates in a White House visit and just recognition that they are the national champions. Pretty cool.
Yeah. And so you have that. And then let's throw up the one about our guy, Captain Jack, who Schlegs you like to talk about so much, Mr. Captain Jack Sparrow, and what he threw up there. Sounds like the name of a legend. Son of Columbus, gave Ohio State an all-time football moment. I heard some sound. I wish we had some audio. Where it exploded off the line. It came bending around, made a great play. And just so fun to kind of hear all that. And when they're talking about Ohio State, when Trump's talking about it, interesting there to hear. So obviously Jack and JJ getting a lot of love as well. And everybody puts like the G, it's a Emeka Egbuka, and the Egbuka, it's a Emeka Egbuka there. Believe me, 'cause I asked Mech about that, how to pronounce his name so many years ago. Like all these guys, I hear people say it, and I'm like, okay, how do you pronounce it? Let me hear how you pronounce your name so I can say it correctly moving forward. But obviously, a big little head nod there to Captain Jack Schleich, your guy as well.
Yeah, I mean, everything that he meant to the team, being that first recruit, that relationship with Ryan Day, like you got to have somebody in that corner who's going to be the next one for them that steps up and that just carries that on. Who's going to be the next playmaker? And that's, again, it's great to remember, but I also think about when you evaluate the 2025 and it goes back to Caleb Downs talking about we haven't won anything yet, but it's the same thing. The coaching staff has to look at who's going to be that guy, who we got to build up over the summer, who developed that voice during spring ball, who's going to have it during that summer in that camp that's going to be that type of guy, that JT type of guy, the Lathan Ransom type of guy, right? The Will Howard type of guy on that side, the Emeka Egbuka, right, type of guy on that side of the ball. And we're hearing Carnell Tate's kind of stepping up that role. Brandon Ennis is already that kind of dog. Who's going to step up in that running back room? That's the thing. That's the beautiful thing about Ohio State and how they've handled the transfer portal. I always say this, guys, leadership has no age and leadership has no tenure. They don't equate. Like you can come in and be a transfer guy and also be a leader. We saw that in Will Howard. We've seen that in other guys that have transferred in and have had leadership type roles. It doesn't matter. Age is not a barrier, right? JJ is starting to step up into that role a little bit too, right? And Arvell Reese or even Sonny over the time has stepped up into that. Caleb has obviously stepped into that. But why? Your best players are your hardest workers. And that's what the dudes recognize. And so that I just love when all this kind of comes together and we can see how these things holistically work. And then also what is the staff looking forward to in 25 and how they potentially have to fill some of those gaps.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to kind of wrap that up. And then finally, Schlegs, we've got Bill Bender coming up here today, so a big deal with him. And then we've got the Vice President, J.D. Vance, picking up an Ohio State Buckeye alum, which I think is huge. And regardless of your political affiliations, like if you're an Ohio State alum, like that's a big deal. I have to listen to all the people at Michigan talk all the time about how Gerald Ford went to Michigan and he was the president of the United States and whatever. I say Buckeyes. And so I would like to hope one day JD could be the president so I don't have to listen to the people from Michigan say that anymore. And you have someone from the state of Ohio who went to Ohio State University, ultimately being able to fill out that box. However, it wasn't his proudest moment yesterday, Schlegs, when he was picking up the trophy. And here's the problem. Like, I don't know if these guys knew that the trophy, was in two sections. You have the base and then you have the phallic top, Schlegs, the cylindrical phallic top. And poor JD, I mean, he tried to tip that thing back. I think he thought it was all one. And then poof, David Copperfield, this happened.
Bam! Oh no! Fumble.
Yeah,
the great comeback, him knowing Ohio State football, like, you know what? Hey, Trevion Henderson, kudos to you. Never lost a fumble in your entire career. One day. Done.
Yeah, so he actually was able to go back into that, lean in, like you said, and give Trey the credit for never fumbling, never losing a fumble over his 4 years. I don't think he put one on the ground since his freshman year, maybe his sophomore year. So unbelievable, 2 to the ground, never lost one. And Yeah, you can see him. You tip it back, and like you can see it start to split. I'm like, oh no, because the top
I saw it happening. I saw it
yeah,
happen.
the top is a little lighter, and the bottom is obviously much heavier piece. So that base started to go, and it was not a good situation. And unfortunately for JD, Vice President JD Vance fumbled it. Jim Tressel, I think Governor DeWine and Lieutenant Governor Jim Tressel were there. So that was obviously a win. And did I tell you, did I say on the show yesterday, I had tickets. I could have got tickets to go. And unfortunately, I had to teach my class yesterday. And so I wasn't able to get out there and see those guys and be a part of it. Because it's one of the cool things. You get,
Yep.
I mean, there's one team a year that gets to do it. I was talking to Cody Simon. I was like, dude, it was opportunity of a lifetime. And I'm like, unless you win a Super Bowl, to be able to go back. And there's a cool picture of Emeka sitting in the Oval Office, in one of the chairs, and you can see like the curvature of the room. I'm like, man, that's pretty darn sweet. So just a lot of really cool things that ultimately happened. But we've got Bill Bender coming up. We got, and Pat's saying in the chat, we got IGB who was up there dancing. They were all, it was having a good time, man. It's a celebratory deal. It was the last act that they get to have. And, before we get to Bill, I want to say this, because we had talked a little bit with Lathan about this yesterday, where, not everybody got to go on this. There were guys that had, NFL visits, which I'm not saying it's not important. I think if you could tell the team, hey, I'm flying, and I'll fly out right afterwards. I'll bring my bags with me. I'll fly. They'll take me to the airport, and I'll fly to where I need to go. We can meet the next day, or I'll meet the day before and fly me to Washington, whatever it is. But I want to make sure that I can do this because it's a once in a lifetime deal. And just the fact that, like, are those guys going to be together, in the future? Like, every one of them. Yeah, there'll be groups, there'll be pockets, there'll be guys that get together, but that whole team will probably not have that opportunity. So maybe ever again since the celebration. If you look at my 2002 team, the 10-year anniversary, there were still some guys playing. AJ, a handful of dudes. Dante, I think they were still left playing in the league, and I had just kind of finished up at that point. So there was Mangold. So there was like 7 or 8 guys that didn't come for that. And I think Chris Gamble came that time. He didn't come for our 20th. So he didn't come to our 20th. But by the time we got to our 20th, there was a handful of guys who had passed away. 4 guys off of our 02 team had passed away. And so there's no guarantee there'll ever be a time where everyone will get back together again from that team. It's such a special run. And so you try to embrace it. You try to cherish it and understand what that ultimately is. And so it's just a very important thing. Before we get going, we got our friends over at Export coming at you here. Parents, athletes, protect what matters most with Export mouth guards. They're trusted by professional athletes, designed by NHL team dentists. Export mouth guards are scientifically tested to help you absorb those high-impact hits, protecting both your teeth and your brain. Export mouth guards feature 3 layers of advanced protection, including a patented use of carbon fiber. That means they custom 3D print that bad boy to fit your grill for more protection, better performance, max comfort, and clear communication. So you can focus on your game, not on your gear. Don't take chances with your safety. Visit exportguards.com/Bobby today and save 15% on your order. Export, protect what matters most. You're got Bill Bender, the sporting news, coming up next. All right, welcome back in the Bobby Carpenter Show. And now we get to welcome in our guy, Bill Bender of the Sporting News, going to join us, do a great job with us here today. Schleiss likes to call him Mr. Richard Bender. Bill, a lot of crazy stuff happening in the world of college football and kind of the last 72 plus ish hours, maybe going back all the way to Friday with the Nico events and timeline. Do you kind of want to outline that as you watched it break down and your kind of reaction to each progressive interval of how that went?
Yeah, it started with him skipping practice, right? And then you're talking through that with editors, and you're thinking, is this a big deal? And from the shoot, I said, yes, it's a big deal. They're 1 day away from their spring game. The optics of it are poor. Is this an actual holdout? The comparison I made, Bobby, I think I said on your show yesterday, was it's like free agency and a holdout in the NFL at the same time. You couldn't do that. So when the collective isn't working out, I think he got some bad advice. Nico Iamaleava did. And I'm hoping this isn't a trend. And I'm hoping, and at the end of the day, there was a little bit of, hey, good for Tennessee. Good for Tennessee to say, hey, we'll roll with the 2 guys we have on scholarship. We'll shop in the portal when it comes open. When the portal's being used as a leveraging tool to get more NIL money, I'm pretty sure that wasn't the intent of that when they passed this 6-7 years ago, when they started with the transfer portal in 2018.
Hey, throw that up there real quick, because I'm going to ask you about this, and this goes into that. So there is another thing I saw on the IG, okay, and others like Nico and others were considering opting out of the CFP, and the reasoning, and trust me, I understand kind of the optics of it, right? So normally, I want everybody to understand this, because honestly, the blueprint to how to do this, Bill, is the NFL. And this is how the NFL does it, everybody. So Nico and them, their speculation, they were talking about opting out of the college football playoff. Why? Well, you pay me X amount of dollars to play 12 games, maybe a conference championship being the 13th, but now I'm going to the playoff. Well, what do they do in the NFL? You get a playoff bonus, and it's the same for every single player. And so now you have somebody that even before they were going to that game, of which they just absolutely got belt to ass, trying to sit out. Think about that. We're talking about people trying to poach our guys to go to other teams. And here's a team that's trying to keep their own guys ready to go for a college football playoff. Like, that's is that how it started, Bill? Is there credibility to this?
Well, 2 things. One, and I've told this story on here before, but I remember that Tennessee game, standing next to Bobby in the end zone, and Bobby saying out loud, and I don't think he'll get mad, he said, I would have given $1 million to play in this. The playoff, because you guys didn't have the opportunity to play in a playoff format where you could feel the intensity on the field and those kind of things. And at the time, it's funny that I was impressed that night with Nico's toughness, because he had lost Dylan Sampson in that game. He had 20 carries. He was getting drilled by Ohio State players. There was a couple hits on there where, it was cold and that had to hurt, but I came away with a very different picture of him on the field. What's gone on off the field the last 72 hours, I think he's going to have a hard time overcoming, because this isn't the NFL where Joe Burrow or Jordan Love or Caleb Williams can hold out at OTAs, then they get the money. And again, you guys were, you know this, the locker room dynamic in the NFL has to be different than college. And it sounds like from the reports, the Tennessee players in that locker room, and you guys know what that's like. I don't, but it sounds like they were pretty fed up with the situation.
Well, and because sometimes it's what's driving the situation, Bill. And I think as we begin to take these next steps, I talked to some people down in Tennessee, and they believe that this was a little bit more of the problem, maybe with the agent and his father. And Nico also has a younger brother who's like a high 4-star recruit quarterback, very, very talented. And I think Nico's really, really talented. But I think some of this, Bill, and I don't know how you control it and how do you try to, button some of this up, is trying to understand the player versus their family and their agent, and maybe who's best interest at heart when it comes to this.
For sure. And you could say dad get in the way, and we're all dads too. And you understand where, when I'm dealing with my kids, I try, it's almost the opposite. And I'm not saying I'm the perfect sports father by any means, but when kids make mistakes, I say, you're in 8th grade. All right. There's plenty of time. We're not anywhere near high school, those kind of things. We just want to be supportive in every decision. I do think he got bad advice. I don't know where it came from. And the other thing, and I had a question for you guys on this, was if he called Oregon and Dan Lanning, which has been reported, and Dan Lanning then called Josh Heupel and said that, hey, your quarterback's shopping around, I don't have a problem with Dan Lanning doing that. I honestly, I don't think he's playing games there or trying to mess up the situation, because I think if I'm Josh Heupel, I want to know if those things are going on, so I have a feel for who my leader is. That's another thing that doesn't happen in the NFL. Like Aaron Rodgers. Well, maybe let me stop.
Yeah.
Let me pick a different quarterback. You guys, Joe Burrow right now, because he's under contract with the Bengals. Joe Burrow's not calling the Seattle Seahawks looking for more money. You know what I mean? So I think that's a sticky situation that, it borders on tampering. But in that situation, no fault with what Dan Lanning's doing. And he's a guy that's on his third straight first-year transfer quarterback.
Well, I think they went to Dan Lanning because he had a transfer quarterback, not a solidified position, to say the least. It wasn't they had an incumbent starter. And here's Bill, this is why I don't have a problem with it at all. Nico wasn't in the portal yet. Like he was still like he hadn't officially gotten in. So there is supposed to be tampering. You're not supposed to be able to talk to players that aren't officially in the portal. And how oftentimes now, Bill, do we see like, this guy gets in the portal and in like 2 days he's out and on to his next. So obviously a lot of times there is some priming that's going on, but the fact that his agent was out there shopping prior to him even getting into the portal is what was pretty wild to me. And that's why I think Dan Lanning, some of the coaches, I want to say they're fed up, but it's like, you're going to use us to leverage against yourself. If he's going to tell you that we're offering him $4 million and this is why he needs it, well, he's the one that's calling us. And by the way, we're not putting that out there for him.
Right. And if you're leveraging that to get $4 million, and at the end of the day, and some people are afraid to say this, and I'm not, I don't think Nico Iamaleava, I don't think there are too many quarterbacks in college football at all that are worth $4 million a year. When you compare that to, I was saying, Justin Fields is making $5 million with the Jets this season. And some people might use that as an opportunity to make a joke about the Jets or whatever. But you have to consider, remember how good Justin Fields was at Ohio State?
Yeah.
And I don't think he was worth $4 million at the time as a college level quarterback, because I think you have to put in the time, get to the NFL, get to a point. I mean, Brock Purdy is making $5 million this year. Again, you can make Mr. Irrelevant jokes. He has started in a Super Bowl. So I don't think Nico Iamaleava, when you look at the stats across the board, is a $4 million quarterback. I think it's questionable whether he's worth $2 million as a quarterback, even though he did take them to the playoff. And again, good for Josh Heupel, because if you look at the production in his system, Hendon Hooker, Joe Milton, what happened? They got to the league. Day two guys, but they got to the league. And I think his quarterback-friendly system is going to produce other NFL quarterbacks, and they showed that they got one coming in 2026. They don't need Nico. And I think even if they go 8-5 this year, and by the way, we're supporting Vol Nation right now as a call, and that's the craziest thing that might have happened this weekend. Is everybody's rallying around that fan base, which never happens.
Well, I mean, they even talked about, like, if they would have folded, and that's kind of it too, right? Like when you're the head coach of a premier program, which Tennessee is a premier program, and you have a certain amount of life, and you're like, man, I'm going to put all my chips in this basket, pay this guy. The expectation of you going further in the playoff just gets significantly heightened.
For sure.
Right? Because we're all in. Go back to throw up that Dan Lanning one where it kind of goes through. And I'm interested to see if this is actually accurate. Like, he hasn't signed with USC, I don't think. But to Bob's point, there is that freshman wide receiver from Stanford. Like, the portal hadn't even opened, and everybody's like, he's going to Texas. And then he goes to Texas day one. Like, it's funny. There's both sides that are actually tampering. There's the people that are on the player's side that are out there fishing for deals so that they mitigate the risk of them going into the portal, right? And then there's teams knowing that, okay, we got to fill these gaps, but we have to be able to contact you on a certain date while other people are coming at us. But this Dan Lanning one, he learns that he's talking. I love that he learned he was talking to USC, but they called him fishing for stuff. And then he calls UT, then tells UT about it. They do it. Nico signs with USC, and USC is stuck with a mid-quarterback at $4 million on a single phone call. Chess and not checkers, kind of like the 12-man on the field type deal. But it was just funny that transpires. What are your thoughts on how we have to move forward in this, Bill, like to streamline this process to where agents or whomever can't contact other schools and schools can't, because it can't go both, one way.
Right.
What's the solution?
Well, and I think it's stunning to me that the people around Nico didn't anticipate this reaction. I called that from the start. I said, he's going to be a loser no matter what happens here. If he gets the raise, and he comes back to Tennessee, they're going to hold him to an impossible standard. If he doesn't, if he goes elsewhere, can you imagine if he ends up playing Tennessee? I know he can't play in the SEC because of spring portal transfer rules, but to me, it's the tipping point in some ways, is that, okay, you shouldn't do this. The spring portal is going to be, it's not a leveraging tool. If you wanted to do this, you should have just entered the portal after the Ohio State game. I know you only had a week, but you still could have done it, and that would have sped some of these things up. And hopefully, I know we've had the contract talk for a while on this show, but it's one step closer to maybe we get these guys under contract. So the two sides you mentioned aren't always, they'll still be at odds, but it'll be less gross. And once it got in the public eye with Nico, I knew he was done.
Absolutely. All right, we're going to take a quick break because I want to ask Bill what the real crux of all this could be of why he ultimately didn't get paid. We got that coming up next. All right, back here with our guy, Bill Bender from the Sporting News. Give him a follow on X at Bill Bender92, doing some great stuff. Bill, what do you got right now? Some draft preview things coming out. I'm sure. When is all that going to start to get released? Your final mock-ups as we're about 9 days out now.
Yeah, and several of those Buckeyes that were at the White House yesterday will be part of that coverage. I'm working on a feature about Cam Ward right now. And there's a guy here, let's bring this full circle a little bit. Cam Ward was a guy that had 0 stars. I would talk to Eric Morris, who coached him in Incarnate Word. That was his first school, Incarnate Word, FCS. I know
it's out in Houston.
Yep, I know you know all about him, Slegs. He that school, and his first year, COVID, they ended up. COVID was restrictions. They played a spring season in the FBS. Turns around, plays a fall season. Balls out at FCS. Ends up at Washington State. Plays well over 2 years. Goes to Miami, and the rest is history. This guy is going to be the number 1 pick in the draft. And I talked to Eric Morris, who was his coach, who's now at North Texas. And it was funny. He said, he was a wing T quarterback in high school, but we kind of recruited him based on his competitiveness, watching him on a basketball court, because they knew he could move and react and make quick decisions. And he ends up fitting in that offense. So it's another, my PSA every week is allow your kids to play multiple sports. I think Cam Ward is going to be another example of that.
So we talked about Cam Ward, and you look at guys who could have maybe done this and maybe leveraged up and maybe got what they wanted, maybe from their school, if not from there, somewhere else. Like Cam Williams coming off a Heisman Trophy, possibly Bryce Young, like guys like these big time quarterbacks, or not Caleb Williams coming off a Heisman Trophy, like guys like that. But the reality is with Nico, like he was a big time prospect, but he's always been a highest dollar type of guy. And is the reality, Bill, if he was just the best quarterback or one of the top 2 or 3 and viewed as indispensable, that may have made the difference of whether he got paid there or maybe even got paid somewhere else.
Well, and this is the world we live in. I wrote about this yesterday. The transfer rate among 4- and 5-star quarterbacks is absurd. If you go back to Drew Aller's class, 2023, Drew Aller and Cade Klubnik, 72% of the 4- and 5-star quarterbacks in that class have transferred at least one time. So we could sit here and criticize Drew Aller and Cade Klubnik, but I would argue that Clemson and Penn State have got a return on their investment, especially with both of those teams going to the playoff last year. Some guys have transferred twice. So, and then Nico's class, that stat that was going around yesterday is, of the top 8 quarterback recruits in that class, Arch Manning is the only one that hasn't transferred. So the story to me is it's already more difficult to hold on to a 4 or 5-star guy. Most coaches, I think, would prefer to develop their own options. As far as Ohio State goes, I don't look at Julian Sayin as really a transfer. I know he went to Alabama, but he didn't really have other than a couple winter workouts there before he transferred after Nick Saban.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So I look at him as, yes, technically he's a transfer, but I had to like correct that in my article because I forgot that technically, he started at Alabama, but I think his development at Ohio State and Lincoln Keenholz and now Tavian St. Clair, which the spring game to me is an example of what we saw with Julian last year. Don't overreact to St. Clair's interceptions. He's still settling in. It's a lot faster than playing in high school.
Yeah, 100%. And, I'm going to touch on that Arch Manning thing. He had a great quote, and it was, I want to be the quarterback of the University of Texas. And sometimes it's worth the wait. And I think that that's where, when you are these type of schools, you go with the people that also want to be there. And I think that when your true colors show out, when you're constantly every single year trying to negotiate, and we're not saying like don't get yours, but I think it goes back to what we talked on the show with you about, Bill, is it a 2-year contract? This is what you make. And then after that, those other potentially 3 years, it is a year-by-year basis, but there has to be a cycle of that. But I do like the fact that sometimes it is worth the wait. You know what I mean? Because you have continuity. I think so many times we forget everything that goes into changing school. Why doesn't that quarterback in the NFL work? Oh, he's terrible. Guys, he had 3 freaking offensive coordinators his first 3 years. You know how hard it is to learn a new system every single year? Like, that's kind of the point of this. Yes, there's some great stories, but those stories happen when guys played a lot of ball that went to other places, a.k.a. a Bo Nix, a.k.a. Will Howard here at Ohio State.
For sure. And there's different ways to do it. Ohio State, they've proven the last couple seasons that I do think Will Howard will be a day 2 guy. I'm not sure he'll be, but here's my point. Before that, they did have a run of first-round quarterbacks, and it became a little bit of a pipeline. Kyle McCord's probably going to be a day 2, maybe D3 guy or a day 3 guy. So the example I would use to waiting and being able to wait your turn in one school that's done well with it is a school that gets criticized a lot and not necessarily loved in Columbus. But I think Clemson has done a great job over the years doing that. Cade Klubnik waited his turn, and now he's the second-year starter. I'm guessing he'll get a shot. He was pretty good last year for them, and they didn't have great receiving options. They've had Deshaun Watson. They've had Trevor Lawrence. They've had Taj Boyd. That they are very similar to Ohio State in some ways with how they've managed the quarterback position in the college football playoff era, with first-round guys and then with a guy like Cade, who was a 5-star quarterback coming out of high school. So I've always thought that was the way to develop it. And then if I'm not taking that guy in the first round, I'm taking the guy that elevated the program. I think Will Howard elevated the program, especially in the college football playoff. But I'm talking about guys like, I always use Phillip Rivers as an example, and I'm pretty sure you guys played against him. He elevated NC State to a place that I don't think they've touched since he is gone. NC State was very good with him under center. And when you see guys that do that at a program like NC State, Drew Brees at Purdue, it's not a perfect theory, but those guys typically do well at the next level.
Absolutely. Bill, I'll get you out of here on this one. I know the House stuff was coming down on April 7th. Those are kind of closing arguments and everything was said. Is there an anticipation for a resolution date on when that ruling and everything should come in?
I think they're still tweaking it. So, hopefully we get some resolution on that over the summer. I'm thinking it may take some time. There's a lot of litigation to do there. And, hopefully that helps speed things up. And one thing I did want to add, other than Bobby, that your Trump impersonation is pretty good. It's a lot better than mine. I had a quick story from the White House when I went years ago. When I was an intern at Scripps Howard Service, I went to the White House when President Bush, the second one, got the jersey from Texas's baseball team after they had won the national championship under Augie Garrido. And it was as loose as I ever saw the president. He was doing the hook 'em horns. It was an awesome experience. And that's why when I watched that yesterday, I went back to that because everybody should have that moment or treasure that moment when you get to go to the White House, especially meet the president, do a jersey ceremony. I'm sure all of those Ohio State players didn't take that for granted, even with JD kind of fumbling the trophy a little bit, because it's been 20 years since I did that. And I still remember where I was when I was doing it.
Absolutely. Well, Bill, we appreciate your time, sir. As always, thank you. Enjoy it. Have a great Easter holiday, and we'll catch up again next week.
Hey, sounds good, guys. Have a good one.
Thanks, Bill.
There's our guy, Bill Bender. All right, coming up next, we have got some headlines, and in our headlines, we're going to do a little player preview. I believe, Schlegs, that's going to be with our guy, Mr. Quinshon Judkins. But before I get to that, I want to tell you about brand new brand, Schlegs. We got some new stuff coming out here. Our friends over at Backer, they've got some premium Buckeye jackets and hats. I'll have to get one on. They sent me over some stuff. It is absolutely tremendous. They've got unbelievable quality. That's what they wanted to focus on, is make unbelievable stuff. It's a premium product. It may not be the cheapest, but it's a tremendous value because you're going to put it on, Schlegs, and it's going to feel great. It's going to look great. They've got these pullovers that are tremendous. They've got lightweight half zips, patented this patented fabric technology in there. You're going to put it on, and it feels like sweet golf gear, sun protective, ultra lightweight. They're going to check all the boxes for you. Use promo code Bobby, all caps, for free and expedited shipping, so you can get that there. Again, that's Backer. It's BCKR.com. Go check them out or follow them out on Instagram. Coming up next, Schlegs, we have got our headlines, like I said, the Quinshon Judkins breakdown with our draft preview here on the Bobby Carpenter Show. All right, how's the headlines? Brought to you by our friends at Lake Spur Marketing. Lake Spur, it's a full-service agency. They're built on trust, strategy, performance. Lake Spur, they shield your team from outside noise, the cold callers. They let you do what you're best. You best run your business. You can't work on your business and work in your business at the same time. They've got over 100 years of marketing experience. Lake Spur eliminates the waste, and they deliver on budget and hopefully on time as well. They don't chase clicks. They build partnership. Lake Spur Marketing, the proof is in the partners. All right. Going to do a little draft breakdown. Hopefully later this week. I think we might have to hit Cody Simon, trying to get him on. A bunch of guys finished up their last 30s visit, Schlegs, which end here in the next couple of days. So I think it's Friday. So a bunch of guys are getting them in here, but I think we might be able to get a few guys on. We're talking now about Quinshon Judkins. So we talked about Travion Henderson. Quinshon, 6 foot, 221, third-year junior. He's about 21 and a half, getting ready to turn 22 years old here later this year. Transferred in from Ole Miss. You'll watch what the guy did there. He's a big, thick, powerful back. He's got really good speed. He's a 4.4 guy, ran well at the combine, thick legs, explosive, well-built contact. He's got, Coach legs, rocked up quads. I know
rocked up.
That. Well, that gets you excited in an uncomfortable way. Great balance, great strength. It's tough to get him to the ground. Like tackling, you can see when you tackle Quinshon, it's a full day's work. He's going to run. Doesn't slow into contact. Does a good job finishing his runs. Good vision. You watch him, the cutbacks, the creases, the big runs, obviously against Notre Dame. Plant and go, good acceleration. He's kind of got everything that you want, Schlegs, when you start looking at a running back as especially first and second down, and he does a good job with ball security and can catch the ball pretty well as well.
Yeah, I mean, also thick cylinder, big neck, right? That's when you have those dreads like that. And he is extremely powerful. Like his squats, everybody talks. There was a huge debate about like Jalen Hurts squatting like X amount of pounds and stuff, and it's funny, like I just like watching the strength coaches talk about that, and they're talking the people that don't like the squat, right, which is the king. They say a bunch of other stuff.
Like
but
people that skip leg day eat tofu because they want their food to be as disappointing as their life.
No doubt. And Q, like what I love about Q besides his smile is, and this is what resonates to me. Well, I love his hair, but it's when a guy can come in and you hear some things, right, from Ole Miss. And we're very fortunate because of Mick and a lot of people. Nick Savage is the head strength coach at Ole Miss. And I just remember talking about, you guys will absolutely love this kid. He is awesome. not a good fit here will be a great fit there. I saw this kid with a smile on his face all the time. I saw him come in here, go against a guy named Trevion Henderson, and just compete every single day. And I saw that like just I don't know if the maturity is the right word, but just the buy-in to competitive excellence on a daily basis. I might not have it in the tank, but I'm going to go find it. I'm on fumes.
What do you think made him not a fit at Ole Miss? Like why wasn't he? What was going on there?
You know what? I honestly don't know. And guys, I'm telling you what, this is one of the things that I love about Ryan. And again, coaching has changed. And meaning this, like it needs to change because the demographic has changed a little bit, but it's all the same thing. And that's to what I call like extrapolate their greatness. That's what coaches do. Like you got to go get in the weeds, talk about Lakesburg marketing, talk about relationships and partnerships. Like how do I communicate? How do I build trust with this player to go do what his body and his mind don't want him to do, because I know that there's greatness in there. And you couple that with like Coach Locke coming here.
Do you think you're a
perfect fit?
Do you think you're a greatness farmer? Like you're going to grow the greatness in others. Let me farm the greatness out of you. Let me just put those seeds of greatness inside of you. I'll farm it out. And so Q, like part of the reason not a fit, like you watched him down there, Strikes. I believe he led the SEC in carries and yards for 2 years. He was a workhorse for him. It's like, hey, do I want to come back here and get 400 touches for 1,700, 1,800 total yards? Or I could go to Ohio State, get 1,000, average like 7 or 8 yards a carry while Trey's averaging about the same. He gets a little more in the pass. I get a little more in the run. By the way, this is when I knew Quinshon was a dude. Not when I knew, but it's solidified beyond all.
It's an indicator.
Doubt. When he was out there blocking for Trey and knocking dudes off their feet. My dad goes, holy smokes, man. Like those are two dudes that will block in the run game. They'll block for each other. Like those are the type of guys you want on your football team. That's an OKG. That's our kind of guy. This guy right here, I'd like to see John look at him blocking for his teammates. That's what I like. This is the type of guy that I like on our football team, one that'll block for you, not just want to run and score touchdowns.
Yeah.
And there's truth to that. And so people thought like, oh, he's not a good dude, this and that. I'm like, he's running backs. You've been around them. A lot of guys, they don't like to block. They don't want to pass block. And sure as hell, they don't want to run block for someone else. And he did both of those really well.
Really well.
Watch him and Trey celebrate together, like after they would celebrate their own successes, made me feel really good about what we have in both of those guys. And then also, like, people are like, he's not as explosive as Trey. I'm like, Trey has elite speed, like wide receiver caliber speed. Quinshon is a very fast running back. People are saying
he ran a 4.48, guys, and he broad jumped 11 feet.
That's my point. Like, it's not like he's a 4.6 out there. He's still a 4.4 guy. Has everything that you need. Very fast. You know, he didn't work out on pro day, and I still haven't figured out why, what was going on, whether he was nicked or whatever it was. But he's got everything that you want, and he's a good every down back. Probably going to go second, maybe high third, but I think he'll probably go in the second. I think him and Trey both go. Trey could maybe slide in the first, but I think they both go in the second round. And he's a guy that you're going to want to have out there.
I think whoever gets him is going to be very excited that they got him on their roster.
Well, because he's a dude. You see his legs.
He's 225, guys. Like Trey's 202. And again, what I said about the fits when you go to the NFL, everything's about fit and opportunity. And Trey is 225, and you see where a lot of teams have, hey, I need a guy that can go get me that 2 yards or that third down or whatever. That Q is that guy, especially if you have that other guy that's maybe more of a passing down guy, but Q can still be a 3-down back, right? I think that's just a little bit different. So yeah, I think he can still be that, but he doesn't have to be that all the time, and you can rotate. And we've seen what he's been able to do. We know he can carry a lot. Well, we also know what it looks like when he does it.
Q has good receiving value. Trey has like elite receiving value.
Yes, he does.
He was a functional receiving running back. He can catch, and he's good in the screen game, and he can get on checkdowns and get you yards. Like Trey, you can flex and work stuff down the field because he's got a little more speed. So he's just a little elevated in that. But Q also weighs 20 pounds more than him. So they're just different dudes. But that's it for our headlines today and our player breakdown brought to you by our friends over at by Lake Spur Marketing. It's our prospect preview, I might add. Now we've got our tailgate talk brought to you by our friends at Real Truck coming up next. answer your questions. And I've got a great little nugget for you, Schlegs,
I like it.
about being indispensable and how valuable you can be to the team. We got that coming up next.
Ooh.
The Big Play Sports Network. Download the free app today to watch all of your favorite hosts on demand.
All right, welcome back in. We got our tailgate talk brought to you by our friends over at Real Truck. Go to realtruck.com. Bring your truck, Jeep, or Bronco to life at Real Trucks, just like we did. They got everything you need for this spring. So accessorize it, get it souped up, and get them ready to go. All right, we got a couple questions here before I get to indispensable man. Question coming from Steely Matt. What do we need in the transfer portal? What positions? All right, Schlegs, I'm going to let you fire away a little bit right there.
There's another one about right below there, Terry said the same type of question. And I think you could get a quarterback in the transfer portal, but I think it's more going to be like a veteran guy that is more of a back type role. Okay. And I think that you need some interior defensive linemen. And honestly, that's it. That's what I would do.
And that's one of the things at Ohio State, you don't go portal shopping. This is targeted buying. It's not window shopping. If you get Caleb Downs or Julian saying, hey, yeah, we'd like to come here and play for you, and you vet them and Quinshon Judkins and say, hey, they're good dudes. They're great players, great film, good dudes. You bring them on. But you're just not taking guys to take them. Right now, you look a little bit light inside. The loss of Hero Canoe was tough. Edric Houston's got to mature into a dude. K-Max got to mature into a dude. And then behind them, you need Taiwan Malone. You need Will Smith. You need some of these younger guys to prove that they can play snaps, but you're also going to probably need to bolster that depth. And so that's it. You already got your tackle situation kind of figured out, bringing in Onyanwa and Daniels. And then also Serveld can play right tackle. So you kind of feel like you have a good handle on that right now. Receivers, running backs, LBs, secondary, check. Quarterback, maybe a depth piece. You like to have 4 scholarship ones, but honestly, if you get past the first 2, what are we talking about anyway? I mean, the Buckeyes are the only team that can sit there and pull that together. And I don't think you would be getting a guy who, honestly, after 2 games or 2 or 3 games, would be better than Tavian anyway. Tavian's really talented. He just would need to play. And yeah, there would be some bumps and bruises along the way.
My only thing with that too is just, guys, it has to be somebody when they pick these people. First off, you didn't keep Hero Canoe because he got $1 million from Texas. And I can tell you right now, I don't think he's worth $1 million. So you charge it to winning, okay? But
he did. He charged it to winning.
He charged to winning, which is great. Go, right? But that's not here. So, but when you go and you make these selections and fits, it has to be somebody with a high football IQ that can come in and immediately add value because you don't have a spring football. And the good thing with that is the places that we're looking, remember, quarterback, I said, veteran guy, played some ball, backup type role, wants to help lead the room of younger guys. D-line, you don't necessarily have to have all that ball, right, to be able to learn the defense because you're inside. It literally is field 8. Am I a shade or am I a 3? Poof, David Copperfield.
Absolutely. So they got to get that taken care of. But the one thing that you've seen with this bringing in potential in the portal isn't great. Bring in production. You see the guys that Ohio State's brought in over the years that have panned out. IGB, starter, really talented as a freshman. Judkins, productive. Caleb Downs, productive. Seth McLaughlin, productive. Had played a lot. Josh Simmons, all of these guys had played. Now, maybe at smaller levels or at different schools or at another position, whatever it is. But I think Indiana proved, don't just go get other people's stars that didn't pan out, recruiting stars, that is. Get guys who have produced and guys who have played. That, to me, is the ultimate success. All right, coming up, we're going to wrap up the show, and I'm going to hit the indispensable man for Nico Iamaleava coming up next. All right, here we go. The indispensable man. My brother shared this with me, Schlegs, and I think it was from D'Antonio that gave it to him, I believe. Have you ever heard of the indispensable man?
Yes, I have.
Get Tress off the screen. He's not gonna. He's gonna go away for now. He would appreciate the indispensable man. And so this is for Nico when you try to get all the money, and maybe more for his parent, his dad, and his agent. Sometimes when you're feeling important, sometime when your ego's in bloom, sometime when you take for granted you're the best qualified in the room, sometime when you feel that you're going would leave an unfillable hole. Just follow these simple instructions and see how they humble your soul. Take a bucket and fill it with water. Put your hand in up to your wrist. Pull it in and out, and the hole that's remaining is the measure of how much you'll be missed. You can splash all you wish as you enter. You may stir up the water galore, but stop and you'll find that in no time it looks quite the same as before. The moral of this quaint example is to do just the very best you can. Be proud of yourself, but remember, there's no indispensable man. It's your little nugget for the day, Schlegs. The bucket of water. It's not going anywhere, and that is a team. And very few people can come and go and will leave an impact on it. Stay locked in. Stay tuned in. We got a big show coming up for you tomorrow with our guy, Aaron James Hawk, on the Bobby Carpenter Show.